scum. That's why we call them goons, if you're new to this. She's a victim of domestic violence. Her partner took full control over her finances and he's now been locked up for it. Hi, it's me again, and I thought we could talk about another one of these ridiculous situations that only exist because of the insane and archaic way that our Pride of Britain national broadcaster is funded. Look at this. Disabled mums, terrifying prosecution over non-payment of TV licence. I mean, that is just a headline that shouldn't exist, isn't it? Everything there is bad. Disabled mums, terrifying prosecution over non-payment of TV licence. The world that we live in, the country that we live in, think that that's an okay situation to happen. It's a clown world, isn't it? Absolute clown world. Claire, not her real name, a disabled mum in her 30s, never imagined she'd ever face criminal prosecution. But earlier this year, that's what happened for non-payment of her TV licence. I don't think I'm a criminal, she says. I have 2 kids I take to school every day. I try and pay my bills. I had to get anxiety tablets because I couldn't sleep. And again, I haven't read this whole story yet. We're reading it together. But I've said it many, many times, right? £174.50 is what the TV licence fee is now. And it's a lot of money to a lot of people. That's what brought me into this fight. You know, I was absolutely skint on the bones of my arse living in the council flat. I had to look at ways to make cuts. And that's where I learnt about the TV licence fee. The fact that this situation is occurring to somebody who's trying their best to make ends meet and getting a criminal prosecution because they wanted to watch a bit of telly at night to relax. Absolute joke. Claire, who was fined £736 for non-payment, spoke to us anonymously about her experience of dealing with the Fasttrack System of processing cases. When it says speak to us, it's Sky News who did this. And we've spoken about the Fasttrack System in the courts before. They don't listen to any extenuating circumstances. They won't read a letter. They just read the thing and they stamp it as guilty. You didn't pay it. Doesn't matter. Now, TV licensing themselves can overturn some of these cases. They should look into it. I mean, they always have, I haven't read this article, they always have a bit that says a TV licensing spokesperson says prosecutions need to be in the best interests of the British public, or something similar like that. They often say, how is something like this in the best interest? How is it a criminal matter not paying the BBC money? I quite often don't pay Netflix money. You know, for most of the year, I don't pay Amazon any money. Do I get taken to court? No, I just can't access their service. This is an absolutely ridiculous thing. If the BBC just showed adverts, there's a lot of prosecutions every year. A lot of people go through a lot of unnecessary stress over a television licence. Just do what all the other channels do and show adverts. All of this would go away. Why is it us? We're the only people that can see that the BBC need to stand on their own 2 feet. Why? Why can't the government see it? I mean, the BBC probably do see it, but they're not going to agree to it, are they? Because there's about £5 billion a year just in licence fees they get. So they're not going to start turning around saying, yeah, we'll show ads. The government need to sort this out. The government couldn't fucking organise anything, could they? The whole process, she says, was terrifying. At the time the enforcement officer knocked on the door, her partner had recently been jailed for domestic violence. He had previously taken control of her finances. All my money was in his account and I wasn't getting access. From what I was aware, he was paying the bills, but it turned out he wasn't, she said. Poor cow. So, she's a victim of domestic violence. Her partner took full control over her finances and he's now been locked up for it. How is this situation allowed? And again, I'm going to make another point here. The only way she got in trouble for this, it actually says here, doesn't it? At the time the enforcement officer knocked on her door. Now, you can't watch anything that's been broadcast or record anything or access BBC iPlayer without a TV licence. The only way they would know if you're doing that is if you tell them. We need to get... The best way to end this whole situation is to get the message out there more that when these enforcement officers knock on your door, don't talk to them. Even if you're playing a completely straight game like me, I've got nothing to hide at all. I would not talk to one. Open the door. Hello, who are you? Hello, I'm from TV licensing. No, thank you. Shut the door. She couldn't have got in trouble. All right, she would have been doing stuff she shouldn't have been doing, but they wouldn't have known anything about it. The enforcement officer said he understood, Claire says, but a week later she received a letter to say she was going to be prosecuted. The enforcement officer, the goon, probably did understand, but he won't have any sympathy because then he's not going to get his commission. They get a commission for selling a licence or for initiating prosecutions. So he could have been the nicest person in the world, but he's obviously not because he wants his, we believe it's about 30 quid commission for taking this poor cow to court. There could have been another way. I hear quite a lot of these where they sell the licence on the doorstep and still prosecute, so they're doubling their money. Scum. That's why we call them goons, if you're new to this. TV licensing like to call them enforcement officers. What they actually are door-to-door salesmen. They don't have any powers. They call themselves enforcement officers to sound important. They have no powers. No powers of entry, no powers of anything. They like to make out they do. They don't. They are door-to-door salesmen. The reason we call them goons is because of behaviour like this. Claire was told she would need paperwork to prove her situation, but didn't have the money to send off for it. With 21 days to respond, she felt she had to plead guilty or the costs might escalate. All you can think of is, if I don't pay this, they are going to put me in prison. Yeah, I mean, it's a sad fact that they say you can't go to prison for non-payment of the TV licence fee. But you can, can't you? You can't get a custodial sentence for non-payment of the TV licence fee. But if you don't pay the fine that's issued from it, you can get a custodial sentence for non-payment of the fine. Same difference, isn't it? She would have been... Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because she would have been given time to pay. She would have been given time to pay. They're not going to expect that, how much was it? £736 in one hit. Are they? She could apply to the court for time to pay and she'd probably end up paying £1 a week. Still wrong, but there was just a lot of bad advice out there and a lot of fear tactics from the BBC. You know, you could say, oh, it was fear tactics from TV licensing, John. No. TV licensing is the BBC. The BBC are the scum that is doing this. The licence fee has always been the BBC's bread and butter, to the tune of about £5 billion a year at the minute. But given 500,000 households cancelled last year, and the year before that, and the year before, they're going to run out of households to cancel soon, aren't they? There are questions over its sustainability. Other models, such as Netflix, for example, successfully exist without needing the threat of prosecution. Yeah, but Netflix isn't comparable with the BBC, is it? The BBC is a broadcast network and radio station, stuff like that. They are comparable with ITV. ITV doesn't have any radio, obviously. Radio stations go commercial. What's the problem with that? Show ads on a radio station. The BBC aren't against showing ads. Let's not forget that BBC Studios own 100% of UK TV. UK TV, famous for showing shows that you long since paid for with your TV licence fee, chocked full of adverts. And who supplies the adverts for UK TV? It's Channel 4. The BBC have all this in place. They could show adverts tomorrow and end the licence fee. There is no excuse for a licence fee anymore. Under the Conservative government, various reviews looked into the pros and cons of decriminalising non-payment, ultimately concluding to keep the system as it is for now. Previously, the BBC said switching to a civil system would cost more than £1 billion and lead to major cuts. Did show ads then. The Conservative government did have some ideas on it, but they had such change of personnel all the time, didn't they? And, you know, the Culture and Media Secretary is who gets to rubber stamp this. And if they're not in the job when, because the BBC is run by Royal Charter, next one expires in 2027, if they're not still in the seat at that point, then whoever is gets to decide. So you can have all the ideas you want. You could leave that job 6 months before the Charter review, your paper will be thrown out the window. There is only one way to do it. BBC need to be told to stand on their own 2 feet. Currently, the vast majority of prosecutions are dealt with via a system called the Single Justice Procedure, which is awful. Learn more about that. Black Belt Barrister has done some much better videos on this for TV licensing than I have, because it's his job, isn't it? Cases are prosecuted by a single magistrate in private, and letters from defendants often go unread by prosecutors if an individual pleads guilty. Yeah, there's no justice. It's just done. It's just done. No mitigating circumstances. It's just done. Almost 31,000 people were prosecuted for non-payment of the TV licence last year. Just over 73% were women. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. 31,000 people taken to court over not paying for a licence for television. It just boggles belief. How is that a thing? Think how free the courts would be if they weren't having to deal with 31,000 claims. It just boggles the mind, doesn't it? And over 73% were women. Why is that? Women are more likely to be at home. Not trying to sound chauvinistic, it's a fact, isn't it? They're more likely to be home during the day, looking after kids or whatever. And the goons are bullies, right? And it's easier for a bully to bully a woman at home on her own, isn't it? It can be less standoffish. The government says the decision to prosecute sits with TV licensing, but it is keeping under review its oversight and regulation of organisations using the single justice procedure. The government is not looking at anything to do with television licensing. If they were, they would be looking into the goon squad to see why they behave the way they do. They would be looking at the letters, because there is no way on earth anyone from government has read a TV licensing letter, because they are worded in a way to scare you into paying for something you might not need. There is no way. Some of them really do pile on the scare tactics. For years now, I have been under investigation, the threat of getting knocked on my door any minute. That's what the letters claim. Now, it doesn't bother me. I'm not scared by it. I know the score. I could imagine many people would be scared by it. How were these scare tactics? Okay. No one in government has read any of these letters. I might actually put a pack of these letters together, photocopy them and send them to some MPs to see what they've got to say, because they have never read any of them. A TV licensing spokesperson said the authority would contact Claire and review the prosecution. We have the ability to overturn a conviction when provided with evidence that it was not in the public interest, they said. I have. I have heard once of them overruling the conviction because it wasn't in the public interest, because there was big furore about it, wasn't there? There was someone with mental health issues, wasn't it? Significant reasons could include domestic violence and mental and physical ill health, the spokesperson said, adding that the prosecution is always a last resort. No, it's not. Oh, they say that. How can they say that prosecution is a last resort? That's all they want to do. Read one of the letters. Every single one of the letters is threatening prosecution. If it was a last resort, how were 31,000 people a year being prosecuted if it's a last resort? For now, Claire is incrementally using universal credit to pay back a fine she arguably shouldn't have been prosecuted for in the first place. Not arguably, she shouldn't have been prosecuted for that in the first place. They're a tricky one for me, these stories, when I see them pop up, because they're awful. They're abhorrent. They're one of the worst things that I read doing the TV licensing stuff. I've read worse, obviously. It shouldn't be happening. But in a way, and it's weird to say it, but in a way, it's good that we do see it, because it brings more people into the fight. It brings more people into hating the BBC and the TV licence fee. How can they possibly prosecute this poor cow? So it's awful that it's happened, but it's going to cause a lot more people to not want to pay the BBC and to look into how they don't need to pay the BBC. If you're one of those people who still pay the TV licence and stories like this piss you off, because they should, have a look below. Got a link. It's a bit of an older video of mine. It's a couple of years old. It's a bit cheesy. It's when I was trying to learn how to talk in front of a camera. It will teach you everything you need to know about what you can and can't watch, what can and can't do, if you don't pay the TV license fee. And you will be surprised at how much you can still watch on the telly. I'm over 10 years now, not paid one. Haven't missed it. The odd bit of live sport, yeah, that stings a bit. But it is what it is, you know. At least I'm not giving the BBC any money. Have a look at that. And while you're down there finding that link, let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. I've made it quite clear how I feel about it. Right. While you're doing all that, hit all the buttons and everything as well, because if you do all that, hopefully I'll get to see you in another video again soon, won't I? Ta-da.